My name is Christopher Peter and welcome to the CRC Review. The CRC Review is your source for common sense commentary covering the public policy and salient topics impacting our national economy and overall society. The original content you will experience here will focus on available facts, evidence, and data to evaluate ideas that may improve our quality of life or reinforce our shared values and principles. In this podcast, I am going to discuss the need to encourage work, protect our IP, the GOP's need to coalesce competing bases, why the American dream is still alive, and the current state of our affairs. So let us begin. America made great progress in our fight against the COVID-19 global pandemic. Against the invisible enemy that forced many businesses to close and restricted millions of Americans to the confines of their home. While COVID will probably remain in our everyday life to some degree, there is light at the end of the tunnel. That beacon of light can be credited to the expedited development of the vaccines. Combined with those with natural immunity, America moves closer to herd immunity. Close enough that we can start moving forward towards normalcy. The great opportunity for our economy and overall society is the reopening of more states, especially in the Northeast, which reopened this week. The removal of restrictions will allow people to return to work, earning a living for their households and generating activity that will boost our economy. Small business owners can find a path to restoring lost revenues and build towards a more stable future. At the very least, people can once again enjoy the benefits of American life. That is our shared hope. Many people expected that as states transitioned towards a reopening that jobs would follow. Reasonable expectations. People working in retail, personal care, or other service-related jobs where income is directly connected to in-person service, this should be a moment of relief. For many, some might find it beneficial in the short term to continue staying on the sidelines. For low-wage work, low-skilled workers choose between exerting effort in positions that might not cover their cost of living or take government support. Which too may not cover their cost of living, but it comes with the added benefit of not exerting any effort at all. The generosity of people spending taxpayer funds once again found a way to spend more tax dollars in a manner that reduces the number of taxpayers. Remember the time-old saying that we do not need more taxes but more taxpayers. Now, the real problem is not the tax revenues lost by these workers deciding to exploit the public dime. Rather the fact that able-bodied Americans decide to sit on the sidelines while other people cover the burden or fair share in society. This is not a situation where America will be at a full employment level, where people fall into the cyclical unemployment category. Meaning people in society whose skill set are no longer marketable. In fact, we are in a complete opposite situation. We are in a situation where employers want to hire more workers but might not be able to entice people to trade in time on their couch for the pride of labor. There are two predictable outcomes. Other possible outcomes but two that can be reasonably foreseen if our leaders continue this path. One path will lead to employers potentially increasing wages to bring back a portion of their labor needs, meaning the new hires will work harder for the higher wage. Not a far-fetched expectation. After many states increased minimum wage to demonstrate their progressive values, many of these employers countered by reducing the number of people working each shift or reducing hours. Another predictable outcome is that employers will replace labor with alternatives. One option under this category would be investing in greater levels of automation to reduce the cost of human capital. How many people order from kiosks at their local McDonald's that used to order from a person? Another option under this category is to replace labor with illegal immigrant labor that circumvents wage rules. Given the increased level of illegal border crossings, there are opportunities to take advantage of the plethora of low-skilled labor, exploiting people seeking a better life in the complete wrong manner. So, what is the solution? That is the real aspect of situations like this that people do not like to discuss. The alternatives. An alternative is to start to tighten qualifications for the additional benefits in areas where employment is possible. Some people call for benefits to be provided even before qualifications are confirmed. Rather, qualifications need to be ensured to make sure people seek employment rather than the public dime. America can be generous but smart at the same time. Our leaders should ensure that every able-bodied citizen takes responsibility for their own life, protecting funds for those who truly need it the most. There was a time for helping. Now is the time to put people back to work. The reason America can get back to work is largely because of the availability of safe and effective vaccines. If you have not already, please consider getting vaccinated to avoid the possibility of experiencing COVID-19, given the increasing number of variants out there. Operation Warp Speed brought the vaccine to the market in an expedited process, but that should not make you question its efficacy. This is not the first vaccine America developed. There was a great deal of scientific knowledge out there to leverage in the development of the vaccines. As we heard time and time again, the cure must not be worse than the virus, and this cure meets this expectation. Not every nation is as fortunate as the United States to be able to develop and deploy a vaccine in record time like America has. There are some areas in the world that will rely on the availability of doses being sold or donated. There was talk about different ways of increasing the availability. One radical idea that was put forth was removing patent protections for the vaccines to allow for productions outside of the founding entities. That would clearly be the wrong path forward for so many reasons. While it is hard for some, people should not let emotions cloud sound judgment. The better way is to provide resources to the producers to expand capacity and sell or donate the additional doses to places in need. There is a need to get the vaccine in as many people as possible. But there is a need to protect innovation going forward. Despite suggestions that the Biden administration supported relaxing patent protections, it appears Biden may have come to his senses and is going to commit to selling 20 million additional doses overseas. People need to understand that relaxing the patents is a bad idea. Not simply to protect our business or economic interest, but to protect future innovation and product development. The fact of life is that the world operates under a system of competition, not explicit cooperation. While global economics is not a zero-sum game, which is a balancing act in response to change in one economy, each economy operates in an environment of scarcity, due to the available resources at any given moment. Therefore, economies compete for access to resources, wealth created from that resources that provides for the people in those societies. The wealth that funds the government programs, compensates workers, and fuels growth. During our experience with the pandemics and other tragedies, we see the spirit of cooperation. Competitors coming together to identify solutions to the society's greatest challenges, before returning to competition. A critical component in this cooperation is that competitors do not lose their competitive advantages. Otherwise, each would be worse off for doing the right thing. A reasonable comparison is a musician willing to collaborate on a project rather than allowing another musician to sample their work without some sort of arrangement. While one may not understand or can see the effort and investment needed to bring something to market, which will be further discussed later, the value gained from a period of protection from competition allows the creator to recoup costs and be rewarded for that undertaking. Allowing imitators early on disproportionately distributes value to parties not involved with the development of the product. All are benefiting from it. Coming all the way back to vaccines, producers of vaccines invest greatly in research and maintaining the wealth of knowledge needed to develop these products. Affording generic producers with early access to the secret sauce has long-term damage. Our policymakers need to ensure that America continues to be at the forefront of medical innovation and treatment development. Not afford our global competitors with a competitive advantage free of the cost and effort. America can help aid in the effort to vaccinate those living in poorer nations by subsidizing or donating doses. But we should not give away our trade secrets. Otherwise, the benefit would reside with the imitators who bore no risk or effort besides copying the work of another. It is not greed to protect the fruits of our hard work, ambition, and ingenuity. That is intelligent. Now, let us move on to the changes and occurrences with America's Conservative Party. The House GOP decided to remove former leadership chair, Representative Liz Cheney, a vocal critic of former President Donald Trump, in favor of Representative Elise Stefanik, a staunch supporter of the former president. History shows us that both our political parties go through changes over time and when its resident in the White House leaves office. Following the end of the Obama era, America saw the Democratic Party veer even further left as more moderate and center-left sought to maintain some level of sanity. The Republicans now must balance the party among the traditional conservative or center-rights, the never-Trump Republicans, and the significant pro-Trump base that exists. The media will attempt to play up the drama to splinter the base, but the reality is this is somewhat normal in politics where parties try to coalesce the ever-changing members of their base while trying to grow and expand their appeal. For the GOP, Republicans must decide whether support for Trump the candidate is a valid litmus test or just his pro-growth economic policies, strong national security, and America First foreign policy. Kinda of the person versus their policies approach. There is no question that Trump's policies were largely effective, especially in the economic realm and regarding foreign policy. The reason why Trump is not the president today is largely a result of his inability to set aside his ego. Somewhat similar response to Obama, people either loved Trump or despised him. This provided the opportunity for Democrats to exploit hate for political purposes, which is their forte. They have a long history of doing that. There are other notable never-Trumpers that still hold prominent but questionable statues with the GOP base. Mitt Romney is a well-known never-Trumper that openly stood against Trump, except when he needed help in the Utah Senate race. Mitt Romney is a good and decent person. Should have won in 2012. The issue in his stance was the appearance of the self-serving nature of politics. When you need a person for your own political outcomes, you are willing to find common ground. Many conservatives are rubbed the wrong way with that approach to politics. Part of the never-Trumpers' problem is their lack of understanding that running as a conservative Republican then governing as a Democrat light is not acceptable. The big grand appeal of President Trump was that he was finally a Republican that ran on conservative principles, despite not being a true conservative, and governed in line with those principles. While there are times when compromise is needed in government, one cannot compromise on principle. Unlike Democrats, Republicans do value and demonstrate the freedom of thought, meaning they do not go along simply to get along if there is a principle difference. Democrats do play team politics better than their counterparts. So, what is the future of the GOP? What should the future of the party be? In my opinion, there is a short-term and long-term need for the GOP. In the short term, the GOP needs to build upon the progress made in messaging to minority groups and delivering the actual positive results that eluded these individuals in their Democratic strongholds. Focus on being the party of freedom in all forms. Americans should not ever need permission from our government to live our lives the way we want to and earn an honest living. Be the party of opportunity, not oppression by government, like their counterparts. There is a clear distinction between the Democrats that use fear and anger to control the public and Republicans who are clearly trying to expand a level of freedom and normalcy. That is a clear distinction. The second part, the long-term aspect, is to start fielding credible candidates in traditional Democratic strongholds, offering these individuals a choice that currently does not exist. Too many traditional Republicans relinquish cities and other urban areas to Democrats, where they can offer an alternative to cyclical unemployment, poverty, poor education, and stagnation. It will not happen overnight, but there needs to be a counter against the false narratives and ineffective policy positions offered by their competition. Regarding policy, the GOP has the right remedy. It needs to be able to expand its messaging, so more people are open to listening to the alternative to the path of abject poverty. Another area the GOP can establish a clear difference is restoring our national ethos. The American dream is not a myth or irrelevant folklore. America continues to be the land of opportunity. Some in our society want Americans to abandon ambition, self-determination, and self-reliance in favor of the false comforts of government dependency. The American dream is available to everyone, which is why so many people strive to become Americans. There is a reality of life that achieving your share of the American dream is much more difficult now than for past generations. True new and novel ideas are much harder to come by, especially as technology impacted the innovation cycles. Poor public policies can add obstacles to potential opportunities, giving an advantage to others not impacted by the same restrictions. But America will continue to be the land of opportunity if Americans protect free enterprise and private investment, which shows a belief in our own ability to discover the ideas and innovations needed for a better tomorrow. There is no place in the world where one can go with only the clothes on the back and still find a path to success. Path to success without relying on corruption, bribery, or criminal activity. No other nation provides the opportunities that are readily available in the American society. Opportunity does not mean one's path is straightforward, free of challenges, or guaranteed to come to fruition as one intended. Some people will need to demonstrate more resilience than others. Some people will have to overcome more adversity than their counterparts. That is life. Not everyone has the same exact strengths and weaknesses. That is a fact of life. Our perspective on outcomes is largely distorted because those on the outside are not privy to the effort, risk, and investment needed to bring an idea to light. Nothing in this world that is worth doing comes without some level of sacrifice. Sitting around jealous of what another has or accomplished does you no good. Yes, you could have done the same if you did it first, but the reality is you did not. The message we should be telling our youth is to be innovative and determined. For many generations, the message was largely finding a job and work hard to keep it. This needs to involve working hard to advance and acquiring enough skill to branch out on your own, which also means saving money and protecting creditworthiness. Everything evolves over time, and so has the American dream. Given the many generations of Americans and how technology advances innovation, new ideas are hard to come by. But innovation comes in many forms. Completely new products or services never been marketed. Or new applications of these products or services. Or even new delivery of them. Innovation comes in many forms. Just need to find one that you can pull off. Finally, we will end our discussion talking about the current state of the world. There are consequences when our leaders are not able to show strength and common sense. Compassion and common sense do not have to counter each other. Consider what is the resurgence of illegal border crossings. Our southern border is once again facing a situation that is becoming, if not already, a major crisis. Not a political one, but an actual one, as illegal immigrants seek to enter the United States. While one can understand the desire to attain better opportunities, we can show common sense and do a much better job of securing our border and implementing a fair and effective immigration policy that does not allow people to cut the line. Immigration helps our nation. There is no denying that. But illegal immigration does not. Labor from illegal immigration allows wage suppression and exploitation of those workers as certain employers evade labor unions and labor rules. On the other side of the world, the delicate balance of peace maintained for some time is no longer as Hamas is once again terrorizing Israel, who in turn is aggressively seeking to eliminate the threat. America must show the resolve to stand with our lone true ally in the Middle East and not be swayed by the terrorists that launch cowardly attacks on innocent people. America should not provide taxpayer funds to nations knowingly funding terrorism and seeking to destabilize their regions. The Biden administration's attempt to revive the Iran deal does just that. A bad deal from the start is not the right path forward. Iran is not a peaceful, misunderstood nation, rather a sponsor of terrorism. America must resist the urge to re-enter bad trade deals and international accords that hamstring our economy while doing little to curb the behaviors of the real threats. Seeking to reduce global emissions is a desirable path. But the leading polluters should not be exempted from agreements by claim and equity. The economies of the West may have had an advantage industrializing before the age of the environmentalists. But the world is a different place now than it was before. That is the burden of every economic pursuit. Our pursuit to reduce emissions should incorporate a greater effort to remove emissions with carbon capture rather than simply stop economic activity. America cannot lead from behind and let our economic outcomes be determined by the halls of governments competing against us. While we may have shared objectives, our agreements should have shared responsibilities and cost, not making America constantly bankroll the world. We can do better, and we should expect better from our leaders. I thank you for experiencing the CRC Review. Please continue to visit www.crcreview.com for more. Until next